getting cold feet?
Come on, let's start fighting!
Feeling nervous?
See ya! See ya! See ya!
Here comes a new challenger.
Wishimiu on the scene! You call, I answer!
Round one. Fight.
See ya! See ya! No fear!
KO.
Yes! You see that, everyone?
Round two. Fight.
See ya! Here I come! Big mistake! Freestyle! Freestyle! Here I come! Perfect! Gotcha! Freestyle! Here I come! Eat this! See ya! There we go! Still feeling it! Gotcha! Here I go! There you go! Up you go! There we go! Still freestyle! Freestyle! Sorry! No fear! Scoop! Coming in! Oh my god! Did you see?
Final round. Fight.
This is way too fun! Here I go! Freestyle! Freestyle! Secret art! Whoops!
KO. Kimberly wins.
See ya!
We currently have a player on a winning streak.
Up you go!
Cold feet?
Eat this! Eat this!
Here comes a new challenger.
Pushing you!
Round one. Fight.
Up you go! Let's go! Come on!
KO.
Damn it! Yes! You see that, everyone?
Round two. Fight.
Come on now. Give me.
Final round. Fight.
There we go. Still feeling it. Up you go. Here you go.
KO. Kimberly wins. Round one. Fight. Round two. Fight.
Here we go.
Kimberly wins!
The featured player's win streak has been stopped. The featured player's win streak has been stopped. We currently have a player on a winning streak. We currently have a player on a winning streak. We currently have a player on a winning streak. We currently have a player on a winning streak. We currently have a player on a winning streak.
There have been a lot of updates in the AI space, especially regarding 3D and
We currently have a player on a winning streak.
let's learn how to read the Bible together. Hopefully by the end of this, you'll know how to read the Bible better, and you'll have some essential Bible study skills developed through this Bible study walkthrough. We're in Hebrews chapter 1, and so I'm going to do my best to explain what's going on and hopefully address certain tips and skills along the way. And if you didn't know, we have a free 40-day Bible study program, a free 27-day, and a free 11-day program linked in the description below, as well as on our website, abovereproachministry.com. But right here, Hebrews chapter 1, apologize for my voice, starting in verse 1, it says, long ago. In other words, this already, and I want you to pay attention to when you read the Bible, notice any kind of, I'm gonna list it out for you here. I'm going to call it time markers. Anything that references an amount of time. So what we have here is a long ago referencing that what's about to take place or be said has to do with long ago. At many times and in many ways, God spoke to our fathers by the prophets, okay? Now, if you didn't catch that already in verse 1, when you read the Bible, it's helpful to circle, highlight, make note of any kind of repeating words you see in a single verse, in a number of verses, in the same paragraph, wherever it is. This lets me know, right? There's a lot of ways and many times that God has actually spoken specifically to our fathers, the author of Hebrews says, by the prophets, okay? So specifically, again, there's two things I want you to notice. When you read the Bible, notice any kind of time markers that will help you contextualize and rightly interpret the text of Scripture and what's being said, right? But also pay attention to repeating ideas and words such as right here, the emphasis on the fact that many times and in many different ways, God spoke. In other words, we are not without God speaking throughout human history. He did it a lot. He did it in a variety of ways. This notes the many. The variety of God's, I'll put variety and I'll put amount. Those are the two things this word many emphasizes. Now, I'm highlighting this for a reason, because in verse 2, we're going to see a stark contrast. This word but right here is going to note a contrast, a difference between what's said in verse 2 and what's said in verse 1. So we have God speaking to the fathers, the patriarchs of the faith, Israel as a nation. He spoke by the prophets, okay? So the many ways here that we saw specifically and mainly is by the prophets. That's not the only way God spoke, okay? But, you know, God does speak what seems to be primarily through the prophets, which, if you start in the beginning, technically Abel's one of the first prophets of God, speaking even from the ground. His blood speaks righteous judgment against Cain. And then you get, you know, all the way down the line, you get to Enoch, you get to Noah, you get to Abraham. We don't think about this. We usually start with, when it comes to the prophets, we think of usually only Moses as one of the first, when technically, you know, there's a number of prophets before Moses. So when it says, you know, that God spoke many times in many ways through the prophets or by the prophets, right? That doesn't limit how God speaks as only being through the prophets, but there is actually a variety of times and ways in which God spoke through the prophets, but also apart from the prophets. God speaks through dreams, God speaks through visions, okay? So when you read the Bible, here's tip number 3. What we need to do here is make sense of what it means for God to speak by the prophets, right? What it means that these prophets were the way that God communicated his word to humanity at different times, but also why the author is, you know, focusing in on the specific way God spoke, which is by the prophets. He doesn't address the dreams or the visions or, you know, Balaam was spoken to by God through a donkey. You have all these different ways that God speaks through the messengers and angels that are sent, but he's focusing in on the prophets, right? So when you read the Bible, ask questions like, why are the prophets emphasized? And then what I want you to do is think through anywhere in the scriptures you can recall where God actually spoke to the fathers of the faith by any prophet. Whether it's Samuel, whether it's Elijah, whether it's Moses, whether it's, the list goes on and on. Elisha. What we need to think about is, where did God speak to the people by the prophets? I want to kind of front load all of that to the front of my mind as I think about what's about to be said here, okay? So when you read the Bible, do your best to, engage your mind to think through all the different instances or occurrences that immediately come to mind where you can think of God speaking to the fathers by the prophets. Now we get to verse 2, where it says, but, and this word but notes a transition, or at least in this case, it's going to be a contrast. So the word but is going to take what was said in verse 1 and note a difference between what's said in verse 2 and what's said in verse 1. There's something being compared and contrasted. When you have a comparison, you have similarities being drawn. When you have a contrast, you have differences being emphasized. So, but in these last days, okay, remember how I said to pay attention to time markers? So in verse 1, we have a long ago, right? In verse 2, we have another time marker, these last days. What I want to do when I read the Bible is take note of the fact that there are 2 times in 2 verses where a reference of time is made. This is a general long ago, like throughout the history of humanity, and now in verse 2, we have a little more specific time frame. These last days. Now it's on us to ask the question, when you read the Bible, figure out what these last days means. One way you might do that is by look at how the Greek phrase, these last days, or that idea of last days is often used in the New Testament, and then compare and contrast those different occurrences, right? This is what it means to do a word or phrase study, is I'm looking throughout the rest of the New Testament and even into the Old Testament to see where I've seen the concept of the last days to make sense of, what time frame the author is specifically referencing. But I can also keep reading on to make sense of what these last days are. He'll give me hints. For instance, in these last days, God has spoken to us by his Son, okay? So what I want you to notice is, again, there's a contrast between the Son of God that he's spoken through in these last days and the prophets he's spoken through at many times in many ways long ago, right? So what we need to do is figure out what's being contrasted in verse 1 and 2 and maybe list that out. So for instance, I see the Son of God being contrasted with the prophets. Not that they're at odds, but the Son is going to be communicated as supremely better. He's a perfect revelation of the Father. He's a perfect word from the Father, right? The prophets in the long ago days were not a perfect revelation of the Father. They weren't the very essence of God in human flesh. The Son is very different. So what we have being contrasted, and this is what I want you to think about when you read the Bible. When you see the word but and you know there's a contrast being drawn, list out what's being contrasted. All right, here we have number 1. Let's put the Son and the prophets, right? That's a clear, a very obvious contrast being drawn. So what we need to ask is, in what ways are they different? In what ways are they similar? Let's answer that, right? In what ways are they similar? Well, these are both ways in which God speaks to humanity, right? In what ways they're different is the time frame attached to them. Long ago, the prophets were, God's main way of communicating to humanity. In these last days, that's a different time frame. His Son is, right? He's spoken to us by his Son, whom he is appointed the heir of all things, through whom he also created the world. So now we transition a little bit and we start to get a description of this Son. And I'm going to highlight it in yellow, actually. Okay, what I want you to note when you read the Bible is anytime there's a list of descriptions or a list of activities or a list of actions or adjectives or people, take note of it. So we have a list here of attributes of this Son. He's appointed as the heir of all things, right? He's the one through whom the Father created the world. Verse 3 will go on, he's the radiance of the glory of God. He's the exact imprint of his nature. So we can cheat a little bit and read ahead and know that there's a list developing. The author's starting to paint a picture of who this son is, and he didn't really do that with the prophets or the way God spoke through the prophets in the long ago days, in the many times and many ways God spoke. So when you see something like that and you go, the author's giving a lot of attention to this son, it's on us to figure out why. Okay? So ask, why is the son getting all this attention and all this airtime? Why is the spotlight on him for so long? That might communicate to us what the author is mainly trying to get across, right? That might be part of how we make sense of what the author is saying in contrast between the prophets and the son, okay? So what we're going to do in the next Bible study walkthrough is we're going to continue to trace this out, but I hope that you at least, I didn't really finish the contrast thing, so let's also do this. Number 2, not just the son and the prophets, but we have the time frames. Those are differences being drawn. Those are two things being compared, 2 different seasons in human history, right? Or how about this? Who God is speaking to in the long ago days by the prophets. Well, it's to the fathers. Who God's speaking to now in these last days by the Son is us, the author says. So the audience is different, right? So when you think about when you see a contrast being drawn, list out the similarities for sure if there's any, but also list out the clear, obvious differences that will help you make sense of a biblical text. Because if he's drawing a contrast, that's going to be part of his main point. And our job is to figure out the main idea, the main point of a biblical text. All right? So I'll see you guys in the next Bible study walkthrough where we continue through Hebrews chapter 1.
When you were little, did you believe in fairies? I mean, I did, but eventually I stopped believing. Until now. This is Mint, a real-life fairy. Or should I say she claims to be a fairy. Not only does she believe she's a fairy, she also says she can see and talk to other fairies. It would be very easy to dismiss her as being crazy or delusional or mentally unstable. But I think there's something deeper going on, and I want to understand what that is. So I'm going to step into Mint's fairy world for the next 24 hours to try and see reality from her perspective. Not because I'm trying to prove her wrong or poke fun at her, but because I genuinely want to understand why she believes this. Okay, let's go.
We just arrived. We are outside of a tiny house right now. It's pouring rain. My inner child is just so excited. I'm gonna meet a real fairy.
Hi, hello. It's so nice to meet you. Come in. Oh my gosh, out of the rain. Oh, how are you?
So good to meet you.
It's so rainy outside.
I know,
it's
but
very
so cozy in here.
I know, it is really cozy in here.
I love your wings.
Thank you. Yes.
They're so beautiful.
Hi, I'm Mint, and I'm a real-life fairy.
What does it mean to be a real-life fairy?
At the core of it, for me personally, letting go of your humanness and allowing yourself to be free and mischievous and very close with Mother Earth.
In popular culture, fairies are often depicted as cute, whimsical creatures with magical powers and a playful, alluring nature. However, in traditional folklore, fairies did not look like Tinkerbell. They were feared and respected as powerful and unpredictable entities that could bring either good fortune or harm to those who encountered them.
We're in a tiny cottage.
I know.
It's a little fairy
Sweet
home.
little space. You don't need much because all of our living is outdoors. You know?
Yeah.
All of the loving and living happens outdoors.
What do we have planned for today?
Okay, so today we're going to be doing lots of random acts of kindness. We're going to be writing notes of encouragement and affirmations to people and leaving them in little secret spaces around the town. We're going to be making fairy food, so like offerings to the fairies, because later we're going to be visiting a very magical place. It is a chakra vortex.
Chakra vortex?
Yes, it is a chakra vortex. It is on Google Maps. You can find it on the map.
So, for those who don't know, what is a chakra vortex?
So this is energy coming from lots of different spaces, and it swirls around and it kind of pinpoints on a space on the ground. You can be more receptive, you're open to lots of interdimensional beings, you can have really good messages there. Meditation there is top notch, and you can receive a lot of healing there as well. So I love going there. I think we'll be able to find some really amazing little secret pixies, maybe some gnomes. I feel like it's very gnomey today, and I think that we will have a great experience meeting some fairies.
So we're gonna go and meet other fairies too.
Yeah.
Okay, I have so many questions for
I
you.
love answering questions.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, how did you become this fairy and embody the archetype of the fairy?
So when I was younger, when I was a child, I felt very other. I felt very different from my family, from my parents. I had this dream, and then it kind of formed this personality where I was born on a leaf, and the leaf unfurls, and there I am, sort of like a little fairy in the leaf. And I was like, oh, I'm not a human, I'm a fairy.
Wow, how old were you?
Probably the first dream I can remember, so probably 3 or 4.
So you've always felt like
Always
I am
felt
a fairy.
other. Yeah, I've always felt like, and I told my friends, I would tell them at sleepovers, I was like, I'm a fairy. And they'd be like, really? And I'd be like, yeah. And as I got older and I started doing heritage studies, my dad was very strong on me learning about my heritage. We found out that our family name is Little People.
Your family is originally from where?
A part of my family is from Nigeria, part of my family is from Ireland and Scotland, and then part of my family is from here, Chickahominy tribe. There are loads of legends in America about the little people of the Americas, the fairies of America. I embraced it, you know, and my experiences as a very young person were very magical. I never lost that wonder. I never lost that spark of magic. Earth is magical, and we are magical beings here, and I think that experiencing that is wonderful.
So what should we start with?
First, I would like to do a cleansing on us. You know, you want to be in the purest state, pure of heart, because that's when the Fae are more receptive to you. So I'd like to just kind of wash off purify our humanness, so to speak, so that we're pure at heart and ready to engage. So this is my fairy altar space. We are going to sit down on the floor so that we're closer to the earth. And have some breaths. And out with a big sigh. Think about the excitement of life, all of the beautiful things that you're going to do today. Think about what it feels like to receive a kind word, a kind gesture, or to read something that motivates you. And think about how that makes you feel. And that is the feeling that we are going to embody today. We're embodying the feeling of joy, of wonder, of kindness, of love. I'm going to just kind of dissipate the energy that's around you. Now I'm going to do something that I like to call pixie light. It's very similar to Reiki. I'm going to put my hands on your back where your wings would be. And I'm going to activate your fairy light, that pureness of discovery and of adventure and release of anything that is too earthly. And when you activate your fairy light, a sense of joy will wash over you, a sense of wonder, and also a little bit of a sense of mischief, you know? And now you're activated.
I feel so many tingles.
Yeah. The Fae have taught me you don't need permission to be silly. You know, you can be as bizarre and as joyful and as silly and as mischievous as you want. We're here to experience this bizarre playground called Earth. Instead of doing that, we stay in these lanes and we
follow the rules.
Yeah.
Who made the rules?
Silly humans did.
Well, what are your human responsibilities?
I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a homeowner, I have a business, I'm a tarot card reader, I do a lot of things that require the human brain, math and numbers and things like that, things that make you forget all of this exists. Shedding all of that and letting that go and allowing yourself to be present in nature allows you to connect with the energy and the spirits that live here and that thrive here. And it's something that I find to be just so freeing, just to allow yourself to forget for a little while, because you can't forget your responsibilities, but for a little while, allowing yourself to forget all of those human trappings and just be a part of this beauty, this magic that is growing all around us all the time. Now let's make our fairy food, our little fairy offering. Lots of different ways that you can make fairy food. I like to use edible glitter or sugar, and then we've got some rose quartz, and we've got some wildflower seeds. Yeah. So we're gonna put everything into our sweet little watering can. We want to put it in with the intention of placing love and life back into the earth. We wanted to let it sit on the altar for a bit just to really soak in that intention of what we're doing. So we're gonna place that right on my bear paw. Soak in this energy and the intention that we have for today, which is sharing kindness, sharing love and beauty and pureness of heart, and putting that back into the earth.
Fairies are more traditionally known as the Fae, which comes from the old French word for fairy and has roots in the Latin word fatum, meaning fate or destiny. Fairy folklore has been around for centuries, with its origin in many cultures, including Celtic, Norse, and Germanic mythology. The first recorded mention of fairies in Western literature dates back to ancient Greece and Rome, where they were known as nymphs and fauns and were believed to be the spirits of nature, inhabiting forests, mountains, and bodies of water with the power to bless or curse crops and animals. In Celtic mythology, fairies were believed to be a
This video is brought to you by Squarespace. On more than one occasion this year, I've mentioned being intimidated by trees and feeling the need to steal their identity through fashion. Well, a new challenger has entered the chat. I now feel very intimidated by dragonflies. It began as all things do, because of you guys. That's right, take some accountability. This is your fault. It began with one fated video premiere. A video premiere that has yielded many video ideas, a number of video ideas nearly equal to the amount of obsessions that it has sparked in me. I don't know why this owl is here or where it came from. Okay, long story short, basically bugs have taken over my channel. In that premiere, everyone was very enthusiastic about bug-inspired outfits, so I said, okay, I'll make a bug outfit video. I did. In that video, I made several outfits inspired by dragonflies, and everybody in the comments just ate it up, myself included. I cannot tell you how satiated I am right now, although just kidding, apparently not satiated enough. I made another video a couple of weeks later, and guess who showed up again? Dragon. And in that video, that was one of the designs I was the happiest with, especially the weapons. And I was like, hey, do you guys want to see me make dragonfly weapons at some point? And I was met with an overwhelming yes. So while contemplating yet another unplanned project, I was on my dragonfly Pinterest board that I made, and I was like, oh yeah, I had pinned these super adorable, like armor style brassiere corsets. And then it was pretty much all downhill from there. I made like a porcelain style armor corset in the past. I really enjoyed it. This whole genre of content on my channel is kind of just spiraling at this point. I am going to make a dragonfly armor corset. And maybe not just that, because here's the design. So I kind of spiraled one morning last week and designed an entire little armor set based around dragonflies. The main breastplate piece is a cross between some of these AI generated fantasy armor sets and these beautiful little armor bustiers I've been seeing on Pinterest, plus of course the candy makeup artists porcelain corsets, because I'm still not over those. And the rest of the set is made up of fun dragonfly style plate armor and a little headpiece. And yes, eventually this project will include the dragonfly rapier and dagger from last week's video. This is just the general concept. I'm kind of gonna let my whims guide me through whenever I get to the actual construction and paint job, but I do eventually want to make this whole set. However, for the sake of my sanity, we'll just be focusing on the corset and bracers in this video and save the rest of the armor for another time in the near future, because I do sometimes need to sleep. And you might be thinking, Kira, that's really cool, but the final image flashed on screen super fast, and I just wish there was a place I can view static images of your designs arranged in a professional and aesthetically pleasing way. You know, a place that could help me to build a beautiful and professional online presence, a place that can help me track my images of a website or hang it on my body and seeing what fits. I did do. We'll see about that. Also, curious minds might be wondering, for a corset, why are we starting with poster board and why are we covering it in plastic? Well, that's because this is supposed to be more of an armor piece. It's not supposed to be a traditional corset. It's not really supposed to give you like waist reduction. We're making armor today, and I use poster board as a base. Number one, because it's super dirt cheap, and number two, because it gives Worbla something structural to sit on top of whenever you're heat forming it. That way your Worbla pieces don't get all like wrinkled and disjointed and ugly. A lot of people use foam, but I use this because I'm cheap. Hi, executive producer, can you bless the project? No, apparently she can't. Oh no. I'm a little nervous now. She didn't bless the project. So let's cover this thing in Worbla. Now, time for a short iteration of how to make a bracer, because I forgot to show you guys how to do that last time. Grab your wrist measurement, forearm measurement, and forearm length, and then draft them onto your material of choice in a trapezoidal shape, and then you cut it out. That's it. You have a bracer now. You can either glue up this side or lace it up, which is what I'll be doing. While I was doing that nonsense, I also cut out all of the foam tops for the bracers and hip pieces. Alright, we've got everything cut out. I'm about to be able to go grab my trusty heat gun and start assembling all of this. And while I was at it, I, of course, went and cut out these like dragonfly looking hip pieces that are gonna be coming off the corset. Then I also made some bracers real quick, which are the easiest things ever to make, and congratulate me because I managed to do it on camera this time. So now, maybe you guys know how to make a bracer. They're gonna close with lacing, by the way. That's how this makes sense. Speaking of making sense, you might be like, Kira, what is exactly going on right here? Well, I opted to make these out of foam because, first of all, it's cheap. It just, like, it doesn't need the structure of Worbla, so foam is good.
I'm just gonna stop you right there. Some of y'all in the comments last time I made something out of Worbla thought it was really funny that I was saying the word Worbla so much. I don't know what else to call it. That's what the product is called. This is what it is. This is how it's spelled. A lot of y'all weren't even spelling it right. Play your drinking games if you want to. I'm gonna be saying the word Worbla a lot in this video, and I apologize. I don't know what to do about it. It's what it's called.
So, these need to be glued together with some barge cement, which is why I have my little respirator here. So before I grab my heat gun and start assembling that, I'm gonna run outside real quick, and I dropped things. And I'm gonna glue these together, and then I'm gonna add the little pattern with my wood burning tool. Let's go avoid some toxic fumes, because we're actually wearing a respirator this time. Welcome back indoors. I forgot my thing. These guys are all prepped now. I did my little dragonfly texture, and you know.
Hey guys, today we are going into the ancient temple of Tirupperundurai, and I'm going to show you some impossible carvings found here. But wait, we have already walked past a miracle, two miracles actually. Look at these carvings, look at their height. Yes, they are made of stone, and in this picture you can see my height, and you can compare that with the height of these statues. Each statue is about a whopping 15 feet tall. In today's world of new age marketing, where the substance is just 10% and marketing is 90%, we do not value the ancient system of modesty. The ancient builders deliberately placed these extraordinary carvings in unnoticeable locations and wanted you to miss them. If you enter this temple, there is a 99% chance that you're not going to enter like this and then turn around and look at these giant carvings. You are probably going to walk straight into the temple without looking back. And by the time you are finished exploring this huge temple and are going home, you would be too tired to observe these two statues. So the ancient builders intentionally put them here not to be seen. But why? But it's not just the giant size that stuns us. If we examine the micro details, it's even more stunning. At the top of the left giant, there are 4 different bands. The first one shows the sun and the crescent moon alternating, symbolizing day and night. The next band shows a series of strange cylinders, and each cylinder looks shiny at the top but has some patterns below. Each one is a Sahasralinga, a type of linga indicating the presence of Lord Shiva. Below that, we can see another band studded with chakras and conchs. The chakra and conch signify Lord Vishnu, the protector of everything. And below that, you can see a band with a bunch of circles. If you count the number of circles, there are 9 circles, the Navagrahas, or the 9 heavenly factors that affect planet Earth. So this deity is basically wearing the entire universe as a bunch of garlands, as he appears to be towering over the universe. His hair and his fierce-looking face have a lot of fantastic details, but I'm going to skip that and go to the weapons. On the top 2 hands, he's holding some weird things. Can you tell me what they are? This is a quiver, a bag which holds a bunch of arrows, and you can see that he's pulling out one arrow using just 2 fingers. On the other hand, this is a bow. It looks tiny in his hand simply because he's a giant. But there is a detail here that's just unbelievable. Look at the string of the bow, how it goes like this with enough space, but here it is tightly clasping his thumb. The string is stretched because he has inserted his thumb, and now there is tension. This is technically called elastic tension, so it has to align tightly with his thumb. And again, you can see that there is enough space between the bow and the string here after the thumb. A fantastic detail that cannot even be seen with the naked eye. I had to zoom in with my DSLR. That's how I found it. On this hand, you can see an animal. It's actually a deer. And on the other side, you can see a tiny axe-like weapon. There are long stories attached to these 2 things called Man and Maru. In the hand below, you can see a trident, and you can easily mistake it for the Shiva's trident or the Trishul. But again, another strange detail. In the center, it's not just a prong. It somewhat looks like a piece of the vertebral column, right? This is another weapon called Vajra, which can produce the power of a lightning. So it is a combo weapon where you can electrocute the enemy while impaling him with a trident. On this side, there is another strange weapon that looks like a ring. You can see how his finger is inserted into the ring. Of course, he's a giant, so the ring looks tiny next to him. However, I have already shown you a ring-like ancient weapon called the chakra in another video. This is what he's holding. And below that, this is a shield, a round shield with a protrusion in the front. But from this angle, it looks strange. And on the other hand, you can see a sword or a dagger. And he has 2 more arms, by the way, and look at what he is doing with them. He's holding someone by his hair, and he's going to cut his head off. Look at the long sword he's holding in the other hand and how it is placed on the victim's neck. Now, what's fascinating is how he's holding the sword. This is not how a soldier holds a sword. A soldier typically holds a sword firmly in his hand while fighting someone. But this deity is a giant, right? And the victim is tiny. Because of the size, you should imagine how a biologist would hold a scalpel while dissecting a frog. He would just hold it with 2 fingers because he's not afraid of the frog. And that's exactly what we see in the statue. He's holding the long sword casually with 2 fingers and is going to dissect the victim. And look here, he's wearing a shin guard made of chains to protect his shin, just like today's soccer players. If you're a warrior, you definitely need shin guards. Not to mention his sandals. I mean, look at the height of the soles. These are huge. Why does a giant who's already giant need more elevation? And you can even see the strap going around. But look at this detail, the kneecap. Look at how it is projecting out and looks like a cup. This is exactly how a human knee would look. And look at the shin bone, how it protrudes like a line. Now look at the carving and you can see the exact same detail. I'm not going to discuss this statue on the other side, but there are many differences between these two statues. For example, his eyes are open and you can see a weird expression. He's not using a sword, he's using a long spear, and the victim is lying on the floor. But look at this detail here on the back of his leg. There is a depression, a thin line of depression between the shin bone and his calf muscles. If you observe a human body when a person's leg is elevated, this depression does not appear. But if he is standing, this depression becomes clearly visible. So imagine the mindset of ancient builders who paid attention to the micro details in anatomy while carving these 15 feet tall macro statues. Look at this horseman here. You can see this little bump on his knee right next to the kneecap. Now look at this bump on a real human leg. I don't want to complicate this by going into the anatomical name of this bump, but these are fascinating details. And look at the muscles of his thighs. See how it is curving down because of gravity. And they not only paid attention to human anatomy, look at this horse. Notice its teeth? You may think this looks more like human teeth. It looks exaggerated, right? No, horses have teeth that look perfect, quite similar to the teeth of humans. And look at the back of the jaw. There is not much teeth here. Again, look at the statue and look at how the sculptor was paying attention to the anatomy of the horse, carving the inside of its mouth.
What's good with you, player pimp? What's up, bro? Oh, you watching Piano Man? Hey, this is a good anime. Yeah, that's what I heard. That's why I'm watching it. I don't see why though so far, because there hasn't been like a single fight scene, you know, so they must be saving that to the end. Wait, what you mean, bro? Ain't no fight scenes in the show. No fighting in this show, man. It's more about the story, you know? Oh my God, then why did people say it was good? What the fuck? Every anime doesn't have to have action for it to be good. Like, this is good because it has a good story, you know, it's good characters and character development, you know, their backstories are really fleshed out, the world building's decent. Bro, what are these slurs that you saying, and what do they have to do with the fact that nobody's been stabbed the entire time I've been watching this show? Bro, have you never watched a slice of life anime? Slice of life? I've not seen a single life get sliced. That's literally the problem that I've been expressing to you this entire time. Listen, man, they be having battles in this show, you know, just not the ones you used to. Battles against who? Well, they battle against things like anxiety, you know, societal pressure, you know, past trauma, depression. Bro, if I want to see somebody fight depression, I go look at my bank account. I don't need to watch a fucking 10-episode anime of that. That's why I've been battling sleep the entire time I've been watching this. All right, you know what? How about this? Don't watch it, you stupid, dumb, idiotic, closed-minded Nimrod. Okay, how about that? Okay, go watch Unga Bunga Slayer and My Caveman Academia. Okay, since that teeny tiny little brain and your big ass voluptuous noggin cannot process anything deeper than a puddle. You know what? I know what your problem is. Your mom dropped you on your head, didn't she? That's why you're a permanently concussed Neanderthal who should not be giving his opinion on any anime past Black Clover or Fairy Tail. And you know what? If you do, I am going to give you the violence that you desire, and I am going to slap the stupid out of you. You got a lot of stupid, so that's gonna take a while. So what you gotta say now? Wow. You surprised me, bro. You actually managed to somehow provide me with way more action than this entire anime. Like, for real, like, you yelling at me, that was way more entertaining than this happy-go-lucky, living life, existing-ass anime. Bro, I don't want to watch no anime to see people exist. I want to watch an anime to see people take people's existence away. Like, they really need me to help them with the writing. Bro, I would have had that dude with the